Well, as I told you earlier in my previous class, I would like to start on the theme of integral yoga in Savitri. I have given you in 2 talks a background to the writing of Savitri. And today I would like to launch on this theme itself. But then there is something I would like to tell you before I start on the theme. Some of you might have seen you must have read somewhere what the mother herself told about Savitri. It is just a note on Savitri, but as usual these notes catch the quintessence of Savitri. And most of the time I have based my talks on this note from the mother. She says Savitri has 4 levels or 4 aspects. First, the daily record of the spiritual experiences of the individual who has written. The daily record of the spiritual experiences of the individual who has written. So it's very clear, as I've been stressing on the point in the previous 2 talks, and also taking support from Aurobindo's own letters, that the whole of Savitri is a very personal experience of Sri Aurobindo. Not only a very personal experience, it's a record of his experiences. So that's why I've been telling is really, in a way, the autobiography of Sri Aurobindo, and which the mother herself confirms, telling us that is the daily record of the individual who has written it. Number 2 is a complete system of yoga which can serve as a guide for those who want to follow the integral sadhana. What's it? It's a complete system of yoga. So that's what I was telling you, that it is nothing but integral yoga. Sketched out through the efforts of Ashwapati and Savitri. But it is a beautiful guide to, if you have seen the word, not guide to integral yoga, she says integral sadhana, note that word. There is a little difference between integral yoga and integral sadhana. You see, when you say integral yoga, it could be more or less theoretical. That you know the principles, you know the ideals, you know the roadmap of integral yoga. That's integral yoga, is the roadmap. But when you talk of sadhana, there comes the walking on the roadmap, the effort, the tapasya, the energies, the practice that you have to put into it. That's why the word sadhak. Sadhak is one who is following not the yoga per se, is following the sadhana. That means is putting in the effort. Otherwise we can say we are all doing integral yoga, We could all be doing, in the sense, we know a bit of integral yoga, couple of things, aspiration, rejection, surrender, all the theories we know. But when it comes to the doing part, then we say, I am doing integral sadhana. And that is the basis of the word sadhak and sadhika, sadhana. So that is the importance. So Mother has given the very pinpointed thing. She says, it's a complete system of yoga. So it has the philosophy, the principles, the outline and everything, but which can serve as a guide for those who want to follow. The word is follow. So no wonder when she says, even to read Savitri is to do integral yoga. Or even now we can say to practice sadhana. Because I'm realizing more and more that you cannot just read Savitri. At least it's not possible for me to do that. Because reading becomes very superficial and even mental and unless and until you have the rasa, the delight, the ananda, you will not enjoy Savitri. So that is not reading. That is immersing yourself in the lines of Savitri. So let's not do it as a duty wise that I've read Canto 1, Canto 3, Book 1, Book 2. So now I understand why the Mother is always telling us, have a silence of the mind, not the silence of the mind, that is, be quiet. Not just in your mind, please let's understand. Is being quiet in the being itself. That means when you sit down for Savitri, pull back your thoughts, pull back your emotions, pull back your vibrations, and be centered in yourself. So it's not just saying, no, I'm not speaking to anybody now, I close my doors and nobody is there to disturb me. No, all the disturbance is within you, not outside. So can you really shut yourself literally from the outer walls? So that is the question of when you say follow, because at that moment when in that silence of the being, then you read a line from Savitri, it's no more just a reading. You definitely enter into an experience. This morning when I was preparing for the class, I was reading the lines and then a line and I stopped and I used to walk in my room up and down. I could not absorb, I could not take it. Such is the intensity of those lines that you have to let it sink. Even a line, a verse, a few sentences. So that's why I said, I started saying, you must enjoy the reading, have the delight, the rasa of it. Next, the third one, Savitri is the yoga of the earth in its ascension towards the divine. You see slowly how the whole thing is becoming bigger and bigger. First the individual, the author, then it is kind of a universal thing, the sadhana for all those who want to practice integral yoga. You see, that's it, a sadhana for those who want to practice integral yoga. And then it goes on to the level of the earth consciousness itself. Not only the earth consciousness, the yoga of the earth and its ascension towards the divine. You read that and you understand what is this Savitri. It's not just the yoga of the avatar, it's not the yoga of the author, it's not just the yoga of the human beings, it's the yoga of the earth itself. It's very difficult to understand this. I remember many years back I had given a talk on this, the yoga of the earth, somewhere in the outside gardens when this building was not there perhaps. And I had done a deep study of this yoga of the earth, and then we realized how Savitri reflects the whole earth's aspiration itself. This aspiration from the creation of matter to life to mind and then beyond. So Savitri captures the next aspiration or the aspiration for the next evolution. So look at the dimensions: author, common man, universal man, earth, and then you see the last one, the fourth one, the experiences of the Divine Mother in her effort to adapt herself to the body she has taken, and the ignorance and the falsity of the earth upon which she has incarnated. Extraordinary. Experiences of the Divine Mother, and it's very specific. In her effort to adapt herself to the body she has taken. So this is nothing but again the sadhana of the avatar, the intense tapasya of the incarnation. Because this is again very important. The first one and the last one, there is a little difference. First one is the author's own autobiography. As we are known, Aurobindo is telling us as he is going up in his own ascension of consciousness. That is reflecting his own sadhana, but at the same time, it is reflecting the mother's own sadhana. And you see the word here she uses the experiences of the Divine Mother in her effort to adapt herself. The word is adaptation. Because she is born in the human form, but she has the divine consciousness. So how is she bridging the human consciousness and the divine consciousness? How is she adapting her divine consciousness to the human consciousness? You see, it is that effort, and the beautiful thing is, except that the body she has taken and the ignorance and the falsity of the earth upon which she has incarnated. So we will see, if there is an occasion, the work of the avatar. So we have the author, the man, the earth, and the avatar. So that's the gist of Savitri. And that gist we have to study perhaps the whole of Savitri. But these are what I call as the four aspects of Savitri. And it is this that has given me an idea of yoga, integral yoga. And then I said, well, it's true that this is a system of yoga, a complete system of yoga. And whenever we speak of the complete system of yoga in Savitri, we speak of Ashwapati and Savitri. The yoga of Ashwapati and the yoga of Savitri. These are two different paths of yoga, or I would say now the word, better, the two different paths of sadhana. It's only one path of yoga, but two different paths of sadhana. So Ashwapati and Savitri, they have followed two different paths. And we'll see that as we go along. And let me tell you, friends, I don't know how long this adventure is going to last, because each time I prepare for your class, I have some other inspiration, and I'm just taking it as it comes. I have no mental plan, so be ready to travel with me a long way. I don't know where and when it will end, if there's an end at all. But whatever, I think there's a great joy in me when I sit down to prepare, and so I leave it to her to guide us. So now coming back. So when we say this question of Ashwapati and Savitri, then I realized that there is the first aspect. That is the aspect of the author giving his own autobiography, and also the aspect of the avatar giving her own effort. So now we have got three paths, three ways: the author and the avatar. That means Mother and Sri Aurobindo, let me call it now, clear? Second path is that of Ashwapati. Third is the path of Savitri. So even before I can take up the path of Ashwapati and Savitri, I would like to delve a little bit into the yoga or the effort, the joint venture of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So today I would like to take up first the immediate thing in which I'm most interested in, as I told you right from the beginning, the work and the joint venture of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. How has their yoga been translated into Savitri or reflected in Savitri? But even before that, I have one single point I would like to take it up today. Because when we say a joint venture of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, there is a kind of a commonness of consciousness. As we said, it's a single consciousness. And I would like to study how this single consciousness has been united, not just when the mother came in 1914 or when she came back in 1920. We think, oh, that's when Mother and Sri Aurobindo met. Well, obviously, on the physical level, they met then. But the consciousness which is single between them, has been having common experiences. And let me dilate a little bit on that point and see how far what I'm saying can be studied through Savitri. Now here is what the mother says. Savitri is the first poem I appreciated in my life. Savitri is the first poem I appreciated in my life. And if you want to know the depth of what she is saying, she also says, I have studied the best works in Greek, Latin, English, and of course in French literature, also in German, and all the great creations of the West and the East, including the great epics. But I repeat it, I have not found anything comparable with Savitri. So when she says that I have appreciated, you know the meaning. I have not found anywhere anything comparable with Savitri. All these literary works seem to me empty, flat, hollow, without any deep reality, apart from a few rare exceptions, and these two represent only a small fraction of what Savitri is. What grandeur, what amplitude, what reality. It is something immortal and eternal he has created. I tell you once again, there's nothing like it in the whole world. Even if one puts aside the vision of the reality, that is the essential substance which is the heart of the inspiration, and considers only the lines in themselves, one will find them unique, of the highest classical kind. What he has created is something man cannot imagine, for everything is there. Everything. So this is the comment on Savitri, and you can see it has come from not just the mother, but somebody who has read the highest and the best of all the world literature, be it Greek or Latin, English, French, German, and even Sanskrit. And that person saying there's nothing comparable with Savitri. So that adds a lot of weight, I suppose. It's not you and me telling. And then what I want to emphasize on is again, as I was telling you, the Unitarian consciousness that is there. So when we say Savitri is the autobiography of Sri Aurobindo, it's just not of Sri Aurobindo. It's an autobiography, it's a joint autobiography of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Let me read out a little passage and then I'll take you to something else. Here is again what the mother tells us. All this is his own experience. And what is most surprising is that it is my own experience also. It is my sadhana which he has worked out. You see the word sadhana. Please be alert to the words now. Sadhana and yoga is an immense difference. So it is my sadhana which he has worked out. Each object, each event, each realization, all the descriptions, even the colors are exactly what I saw, and the words, phrases are also exactly what I heard. And all this before having read the book. I read Savitri many times afterwards, but earlier when he was writing, he used to read it to me. Every morning I used to hear him read Savitri. During the night he would write, and in the morning read it to me. And I observed something curious, that day after day the experiences he read out to me in the morning were those I had had the previous night, word by word. Yes, all the descriptions, the colors, the pictures I had seen, the words I had heard, all I heard in it, put by him into poetry, into miraculous poetry. Yes, they were exactly my experiences of the previous night, which he read out to me the following morning. And it was not just one day by chance, but for days and days together. And every time I used to compare what is said with my previous experiences, and they were always the same. I repeat, it was not that I had told him my experiences and that he had noted them down afterwards. No. He knew already what I had seen. It's my experiences he has presented at length, and they were his experiences also. It's moreover the picture of our joint adventure into the unknown, or rather into the supermind. These are experiences lived by him. Realities, supracosmic truths. He experienced all these as one experiences joy or sorrow physically. He walked in the darkness of inconscience, even in the neighborhood of death, endured the sufferings of perdition, and emerged from the mud, the world misery, to breathe the sovereign plenitude and enter the supreme Ananda. He crossed all these realms, went through the consequences, suffered and endured physically what one cannot imagine. Nobody till today has suffered like him. He accepted suffering to transform suffering into the joy of union with the Supreme. It is something unique and incomparable in the history of the world. It is something that has never happened before. He is the first to have traced the path in the unknown, so that we may be able to walk with certitude towards the supermind. He has made the work easy for us. Savitri is his whole yoga of transformation. And this yoga appears now for the first time in the earth consciousness. Again, I read out this passage because of two reasons, as you can see. The one, to emphasize and re-emphasize how every line that we see in Savitri is an imprint of Sri Aurobindo's own consciousness. No wonder certain people have seen, while they were reading Savitri, lines of blue consciousness all over the page. I mean, one can enter very directly into Sri Aurobindo's and the Mother's consciousness here. And secondly, I read out this passage to tell you the oneness of their consciousness, the single consciousness. So this is what we see while Savitri was being written. The Sri Aurobindo would come in the morning and read out the lines that he had written the night before. And as the Mother says, they were exactly the same words, the same colors, the same experiences. But then I stopped at that and went back into a few decades, or by a few decades. And then long back, as all of you know, the first draft of Savitri was written 1988-89 in Baroda. And I had mentioned to you last time, I brought a book from A.B. Purani, where he says in the notes of D.K. Roy, who was Sri Aurobindo's tutor for Bengali, in his diaries, in his book actually, we find a note where he says Sri Aurobindo was writing Savitri. So the very first draft of Savitri was at that time. And then, long after means, if this was in about 1898 and 99, in 1906, month of October, Mother wrote a tale called A Sapphire Tale. I don't know if you have read that, but it is there in the Collected Works, Volume 2, Collected Works of the Mother, Volume 2, page 7. Well, it's a very sweet story. But then, just as Sri Aurobindo got the first draft of Savitri, where he gives more the story of Savitri as seen in Mahabharata, so also the Mother gives a story called A Sapphire Tale. But I want you to see the commonness between the two stories. Although there's a difference, apparent difference, but you can see the commonness, and I was pretty much taken aback by that. Because that commonness which was seen in 1906 and 1899 is brought out in full in the last version of Savitri. I mean, I'll explain myself. First, let me read out a little bit of this story. I'll not read out the whole thing, you may read it for yourselves. That's on page 7 to 11. But I'd like to read out the most important line just to keep the line of the story. Once upon a time, far away in the east, there was a small country that lived in order and harmony, where each one in his own place played the part for which he was made, for the greatest good of all. Well, then he goes to give a description of the artists and the scientists and the philosophers, and how it was such a beautiful place of harmony, etc. And then he tells us about the king. At that time when our narrative begins, this remarkable ruler had reached a great age. He was more than 200 years old. And although he still retained all his lucidity and was still full of energy and vigor, he was beginning to think of retirement, a little weary of the heavy responsibilities which he had borne for so many years. He called his young son Meotha to him. The prince was a young man of many and varied accomplishments. He was more handsome than men usually are. His charity was of such perfect equity that it achieved justice. His intelligence shone like a sun, and his wisdom was beyond compare. For he had spent part of his youth among workmen and craftsmen to learn by personal experience the needs and requirements of their life, and he had spent the rest of his time alone or with one of the philosophers as his tutor, in seclusion in the square tower of the palace, in study or contemplative repose. So here the hero is Meotha, as against Satyavan we see. And so, like Satyavan, here we get a person who is tremendously, who has a great achievement, sense of justice, intelligence, philosopher, etc. Meotha bowed respectfully before his father, who seated him at his side and spoke to him in these words: "My son, I have ruled this country for more than 170 years. And although to this day all men of goodwill have seemed content with my guidance, I fear that my great age will soon no longer allow me to bear so lightly the heavy responsibility of maintaining order and watching over the well-being of all." Then, of course, I skip a few lines to say, toward the end he would say, "But as you know, according to the age-old custom, no one may ascend the throne who is not Bhaiyoon. That is, unless he is united by the bonds of integral affinity with the one who can bring him the peace of equilibrium by a perfect match of tastes and abilities. It was to remind you of this custom that I called you here, and to ask you whether you have met the young woman who is both worthy and willing to unite her life with yours according to our wish." So you can already recollect what Ashwapati is telling Savitri, wanting her to go and find her partner. The same thing here. Then Meotha says, "It would be a joy to me, my father, to be able to tell you, I have found the one whom my whole being awaits. But alas, this is yet to be. The most refined maidens in the kingdom are all known to me, and for several of them I feel a sincere liking and a genuine admiration, but not one of them has awakened in me the love which can be the only rightful bond. And I think I can say without being mistaken that in return none of them has conceived a love for me. Since you are so kind as to value my judgment, I will tell you what is in my mind. It seems to me that I should be better fitted to rule our little nation if I were acquainted with the laws and customs of other countries. I wish therefore to travel the world for a year, to observe and learn. I ask you, my father, to allow me to make this journey, and who knows, I may return with my life's companion, the one for whom I can be all happiness and all protection." I mean, now that you know the story of Savitri, you can see the similarity already, which I will focus later. So the interesting point here is Miyota says, I'll go around other countries and wanting to know other cultures. And maybe I'll find the partner. He says, I may return with my life's companion. And interestingly, in Mahabharata too, where we see the story, where we get the story of Savitri, Ashwapati, like in Aurobindo Savitri, does not tell Savitri to go around and look for her companion. There is like this story of what we are saying. The father Ashwapati also suggests to Savitri, and then there's no description of Savitri going out onto the journey to the forest and all that. So there is a description of her going, and then immediately the description of her coming back. What happens in between is not described in the Mahabharata. But that's what Aurobindo would describe, and in the mother story also you will see a description of that. So when the son says, I will go out and then maybe I will return with my life's companion, the father says, your wish is wise, my son, go, and your father's blessing be with you. Then of course, there is the description of his journey, but then the other side, what's happening? Amid the western ocean lies a little island, valued for its valuable forests. Miyota is on the eastern side, and on the western side, there is another island where we see the heroine, the lady. Her name is Lian. One radiant summer's day, a young girl is walking slowly in the shade of the wonderful trees. Her name is Lian, and she is fair among women. Her lithe body sways gracefully beneath light garments. Her face, whose delicate skin seems paler for her carmine lips, is crowned with a heavy coil of hair, so golden that it shines. And her eyes, like two deep doors opening on limitless blue, light up her features with their intellectual radiance. We have a similar description of Savitri in the Mahabharata. You know, the intellectual radiance. So there also in Mahabharata she is described something of the radiant deity or radiant lady. I don't find the exact word now. Now Lian is an orphan, alone in life, but her great beauty and rare intelligence have attracted much passionate desire and sincere love. But in a dream she has seen a man who seems from his garments to come from a distant land. And the sweet and serious gaze of the stranger has won the heart of the girl. Now she can love no other. Since then she has been waiting and hoping. It is to be free to dream of the handsome face seen in the night that she is walking amid the solitude of the lofty woods. Well, I'll skip a para or two. Then because she is walking in the forest, just as Satyavan is walking in the forest. Now, the last line she says, it said, at the idea that perhaps she is going to meet him, she stops short, trembling, pressing her hands against her beating heart, her eyes closed to savor to the full exquisite emotion, and now the sensation grows more and more intense until it is so precise that Liane opens her eyes, sure of her presence. Oh, wonder of wonders! Here is there, he is there, he in truth, as she has seen him in her dream, more handsome than men usually are. It was Miyota. Now this is a passage which I'm going to read. There are half a page here. I'm going to read it out full, and this is a passage that is completely reflected in the last version of Savitri. I'm telling you last version because in the first version there's no such passage description. There's only the meeting of Savitri and Satyavan, like there's a meeting of Miyota and Lian in Mother's story. But what Mother has written here definitely is an indication of that oneness of consciousness. Look at what she is describing when they meet. With a look, they have recognized each other. With a look, they have told each other of the long waiting and the supreme joy of rediscovery. For they have known each other in a distant past, now they are sure of it. She places her hand in the hand he offers her, and together, silent in a silence filled with thoughts exchanged, they went their way through the forest. Before them appears the sea, calm and green beneath a happy sun. A great ship sways gently near the shore. Meekly, trustingly, Leone follows Miyota into the boat, which awaits them, drawn up on the sand. Two strong oarsmen put it to the sea and soon bring them alongside the vessel. Only, as she sees the little island disappearing below the horizon, does the girl say to her companion, "I was waiting for you. Now that you have come, I have followed you without question. We are made for each other. I feel it. I know it. And I know also that now and forever you will be my happiness and my protection. But I love my island, birthplace with its beautiful forests. And I'd like to know to what shore you are taking me. I have sought you throughout the world," Miyata is telling. "I have sought you throughout the world, and now that I have found you, I have taken your hand without asking you anything. For in your eyes, I saw that you expected me. From this moment and forever, my beloved shall be all to me. And if I have made her leave her little wooded isle, it is to lead her as a queen to her kingdom, the only land on earth that is in harmony, the only nation that is worthy of her." Well, this is the mother writing the story in 1906, month of October. Just 5-7 years later, because 6 years earlier Aurobindo had written his first draft of Savitri. And this meeting is what is reflected in Book 5, Canto 2. And those of you who have SABCL 29, volume 29, it is on page 400, or you can open Canto 2 of Book 5, if you have Canto 2, Book 5. Well, this canto is a marvel in itself. And I was reading a book by a person whom all of you know well. He writes that if Aurobindo had not written anything else except this canto, still he would have been one of the greatest authors of the world. So that is the praise given to this Canto 2 of Book 5. Well, I'm not going to take this up, but a few lines here and there which are really reflecting what these last lines are telling in the story. You know, I'm referring to Dr. Natkarni, who has given lots of talks here. He praises this canto immensely. But then I'm going to take up the canto that I love more, is the canto 3, the meeting of Satyavan and Savitri. But there are a few lines in canto, just I'll skip and read out a few lines. That will be a little difficult for you because I'm not following any order, but this is there in canto 2, maybe in the second page. You follow me only from canto 3. This one, let me just read out a few and just skip through. So, here first she met on the uncertain earth, the one for whom her heart had come so far. Exactly the same experience that Niyotha is telling. This is canto 2. This is exactly the same experience that we see in Niyotha and Liene. He came all the way and to find her on an island. And the same thing, so he appeared against the forest verge, inset twixt green relief and golden ray. The same description where Liene is in the forest verge and Niyotha finds her there. It's exactly the opposite, but the same scenario. And as if a weapon of the living light, erect and lofty like a spear of God, his figure led the splendor of the morn. Well, that is a couple of lines, but not. I'm not staying there. And one thing I'm enamored of these lines always in my first reading of Savitri, and I read out again if you can get them. That is a couple of pages later, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages later. When they first meet, and Savitri is still sitting on the chariot, and then Sri Aurobindo describes, the chariot stood like an arrested wind, and Satyavan looked out from his soul's doors, and felt the enchantment of her liquid voice fill his youth's purple ambience, and endured the haunting miracle of a perfect face. That is the first vision. The haunting miracle of a perfect face. See the very first impact. And then he says, gaze met close gaze and clung in sight's embrace. Well, that is just the background. The first meeting, there are no words exchanged. And now come to canto 3. Please open canto 3. I'll read a few lines from there. And I'd like to study a few passages from there in the light of the mother story. And I'm again and again telling you this is only to reinforce what I'm telling is that oneness of the consciousness of Mother and Sri Aurobindo is seen not just when they came to Pondicherry, but long before. Same vibration, the same experiences, almost the same experience. So what Sri Aurobindo has written in Savitri, she has given the gist of that sapphire tale. So that's why I'm bringing them together. So let me take up canto 3 now, where there is an introduction, as Mother says here. They introduce themselves, and in fact the line that I'm quoting here is, with a look they have recognized each other, with a look they have told each other of the long waiting and the supreme joy of rediscovery, for they have known each other in a distant past, now they are sure of it. Now you see the lines here. Thus Satyavan spoke first to Savitri. O thou who comes to me out of time's silences, yet thy voice has wakened my heart to an unknown bliss. Immortal or mortal only in thy frame, for more than earth speaks to me from thy soul, and more than earth surrounds me in thy gaze. How art thou named among the sons of men? Whence hast thou dawned, filling my spirit's days, brighter than summer, brighter than my flowers, into the lonely borders of my land, of my life. O sunlight molded like a golden maid. I mean, you will see this whole passage, the purity of the passage. I mean, there is the romance, there is Savitri and Satyavan meeting, but it is kind of, the human love transformed into its highest degree. I mean, I've read this passage in the other classes too. There's not one vibration of the lower human feeling of love, where we have debased love. But here you see the purity, the height of love. O sunlight molded like a golden maid, I know that mighty gods are friends of earth. Amid the pageantries of day and dusk, long have I travelled with my pilgrim soul, moved by the marvel of familiar things. Well, there's a long description where Satyavan introduces himself, and then he tells all the work that he has been doing, etc., etc. Now I come down a little bit, if you can find the line. If our time-vexed affections thou canst feel, that's the next page. I found that, let's try to see that. If our time-vexed affections thou canst feel, earth's ease of simple things can satisfy. If thy glance can dwell content on earthly soil, and this celestial summary of delight, thy golden body dally with fatigue, oppressing with its grace our terrain, while the frail, sweet, passing taste of earthly food delays thee and the torrent's leaping wine. Now this is what I want to say, this next line. After introducing himself, she is sitting in the chariot, and he gives a long introduction of what work he does, what has been his human experience, and then ultimately he says, descend. A single word, descend. You see, normally none of these Aurobindo lines are like that, descend and a full stop. So you have to pause there. You have to see Savitri descending from the chariot. Aurobindo gives you a pause for you to see, visualize Savitri coming down. He says, descend. Pause. Let thy journey cease. Come down to us. Close is my father's creepered hermitage, screened by the tall ranks of his silent kings. Sung too by voices of hue-robed choirs, whose chants repeat, transcribed in music's notes, the passionate coloured letterings of the boughs, and fill the hours with their melodious cry. Well, a lot has been written about Aurobindo's description of nature in Savitri. But my only, understanding is, he breathes life, he breathes spirituality, he breathes spirit into nature. He doesn't see nature just as tall trees or mountains. Everywhere you see, take up any description of nature, he sees the behind, he sees the spirit, the Godhead, the divinity. So you look at this, he says, screened by the tall ranks of these silent kings, referring to the trees. Silent, tall kings, unperturbed, watching the skies. Sung too by voices of the hue-robed choirs, the birds, the nature, the singing. And then the beautiful word, hue-robed. You see, he coins beautiful words. Hue, the color, robed, the birds, and then the choir of these birds, whose chants repeat, transcribed in music's notes. You see there the sound, the singing, the song of the birds is repeated in all human notes, in all human ragas, in all human singing. The passionate color lettering of the boughs and fill the hours with their melodious cry. And of course he goes down. I will not read that passage because I'm just trying to give you exactly, let me be focused, the description that is there in Sapphire's tale. I'm trying to read that here. Then when Satyavan has stopped his self-introduction, and then look at Savitri. And remember, I'm comparing her with Liana here, when she sees Miyotha, and then she says, I was waiting for you, and now that you have come, I have followed you without question. We are made for each other, I feel it, I know it, and I know also that now and forever you will be my happiness and my protection. And this is what Savitri is telling. I am Savitri, Princess of Madra. Who art thou? What name musical on earth expresses thee to men? I mean, look at the poetry. What name musical on earth? It's not just what's your name. And when in the next page, when Savitri is introducing herself, I am Savitri, the first speech of Savitri after Satyavan speaks. I am Savitri, Princess of Madra, who art thou? What name musical on earth expresses thee to men? What trunk of kings watered by fortunate streams has flowered at last upon one happy branch? Why is thy dwelling in the pathless wood, far from the deeds thy glorious youth demands, haunt of the anchorites and earth's wilder broods, where only with thy witness self thou roamst in nature's green unhuman loneliness, surrounded by enormous silences and the blind murmur of primeval calms? So she has just asked him, who art thou? And in this sentence here, if you note here, what name musical on earth expresses thee to men? You see, in India we have a custom, we don't say in India, what's your name? You say, aapka shubha naam kya hai? You know, that is Shubha. Shubha, how do you say that? Deep, can you help me? Deepshika. Shubha naam, what do you say that? Auspicious. You see, it's not just a blunt name as Jack and Jill. What is their auspicious name? You see, there is a meaning, there is a sacredness added to that. We always say, aapka shubh naam kya hai? Means, what is your shubh naam? We don't say, aapka naam kya hai? So the same way she is asking, what name musical on earth? You see, there's a different dimension. And then she's asking, why are you here? And then what has been the trunk of kings, thy lineage? And then you are that happy branch. What is the lineage of the trunk? Why is that dwelling in the pathless wood? And then Satyavan says, and Satyavan replied to Savitri, in days when yet his sight looked clear on life, King Dhimatsena once, the Shalva, reigned through all the tract which from behind these tops, passing his days of emerald delight, in trusting converse with the traveller winds, turns looking back towards the southern heavens and leans his flank upon the musing hills. Well, this is a description, I'm sure you have all read that, but just bringing out the self-introduction that was there in the same story. I'm just pointing out those things. I'll skip a few lines, come down, and then you will see. But look at Satyavan's his own spiritual attainment. He says, if you can get the line, starting with great nature came to her recovered child. I reigned in a kingdom of a nobler kind than man can build upon dull matter's soil. I met the frankness of the primal earth. I enjoyed the intimacy of infant God. In the great tapestried chambers of her state, free in her boundless palace I have dwelt, indulged by the warm mother of us all, reared with my natural brothers in her house. I lay in the wide bare embrace of heaven, the sunlight's radiant blessing clasped by my brow, the moonbeam's silver ecstasy at night kissed my dim lids to sleep. Well, friends, as you know, I'm not taking up this canto for studies, so I'm not explaining, I'm just pointing out the important lines. And last I come to this one. You skip one page there, and if you can get this line where it says, mountains and trees, see after a page, mountains and trees stood there like thoughts from God. Look at that line. I mean, you just learn this line, mountains and trees stood there like thoughts from God, and you go into Aurobindo chanting this line. You will have thoughts from God. I mean, you see the purity of this line. How could have anybody imagined this? Mountains and trees stood there like thoughts from God. You see the spiritual dimension. A man who is seeing not just the rubble and the green leaves, but they are the concretization of the thoughts from God. Pranged butterflies, the conscious flowers of air, the brilliant long bills in their vivid dress, the peacock scattering on the breeze his moons. Where's the peacock lady? Tina. The peacock scattering on the breeze his moons painted my memory like a frescoed wall. I mean, each of those peacock, those little things are called as moons. A brilliant discovery. The peacock scattering on the breeze his moons painted my memory like a frescoed wall. I carved my vision out of wood and stone. I caught the echoes of a word supreme and metered the rhythm beats of infinity and listened through music for the eternal voice. Well, I can go on, but I have to arrest at one place, and I'm arrested at one line. Come down a few lines, you see. He says, I sat with the forest sages in their trance. There poured awaking streams of diamond light. I glimpsed the presence of the One in all. I think Aurobindo is speaking of himself. He says, I glimpsed the presence of the One in all. But still, they lacked that last transcendent power, and matter still slept empty of its Lord. The spirit was saved. The body lost and mute, lived still with death and ancient ignorance. The inconscient was its base, the void its fate. You see, this is all the experience of Satyavan. That he says, I've seen God, I've been near to Him, I've seen in nature the presence of the Lord, but still there's something missing. I have not yet caught the last. There's a supreme description later on, we'll come to that, but look at him, he says, I've seen everything, but there's still something. The spirit was saved, the body lost and mute, lived still with death and ancient ignorance. The inconscient was its base, the void its fate. And the next line is the last line. But thou hast come, and all will surely change. In the morning when I read that, I sank. I could not read a word more. Because I know the meaning in my own personal life when I apply this to the mother. But look at the reading of Satyavan. There's so much of ignorance, matter has not changed, body is still under the purview of death. All that is there, but look at a simple line, a magnificent simple line, but I think it is the heaviest of spiritual lines, if you can see against the backdrop of the mother. And so silently, almost I can hear him telling that to Savitri, but thou hast come and all will surely change. I think it's the mantra that should be written on all the walls in all the buildings of Aurobindo and Ashram. Because that gives you the hope. Thou hast come and all will surely change. There's no doubt, there's no debating. Have that faith. The Aurobindo, when we speak of integral yoga, aspiration, faith, I think there's no greater line than this to give us faith and trust in the grace divine. I shall feel the world mother in thy golden limbs and hear her wisdom in thy sacred voice. The child of the void shall be reborn in God. My matter shall evade the inconscient trance. You see, all this is a description of what will happen because thou hast come. So he says, what will happen? The child of the void shall be reborn in God. My matter shall evade the inconscient trance. My body, like my spirit, shall be free. It shall escape from death and ignorance. And literally that's what happens. When he leaves the body, it escapes death and ignorance. He is reborn, he is transformed. But he sees that promise in Savitri. And maybe there was this promise that Aurobindo himself saw in the mother. So look at that. And I mean, well, I don't know, I cannot stop time and it's very difficult. But maybe we'll take it up again. But this is an extraordinary, I mean, I am almost listening to Mother and Aurobindo speaking to each other. You know, that's the promise, that's the vision, that's the hope given to mankind. Then Savitri says, speak more to me. Speak more, O Satyavan. Speak of thyself and all thou art within. I would know thee as if we had ever lived together in the chamber of our souls. Speak till a light shall come into my heart, and my moved mortal mind shall understand what all the deathless being in me feels. It knows that thou art he my spirit has sought amidst earth's thronging visages and forms across the golden spaces of my life. And Mother writes so simple words here. She says, I know they have been waiting long and a supreme joy of rediscovery, for they have known each other in a distant past. Now they are sure of it. What more proof do you want of their oneness of their consciousness? What Aurobindo describes here, she described long back in 1906. This was written in maybe 1936, 30 years before. So it is really, they have been physically apart, but the consciousness has been the one and the same, be it Paris or be it Pondicherry, be it Algeria, or be it anywhere. So all the experience that they have gone through is a single experience. Well, I suppose, so sorry to see the time running away. Whereas I thought reading Savitri, time would get arrested. But yeah, I think for Savitri class, you come a little prepared to sit longer. Because I don't know when to stop. Because it's very difficult to stop reading Savitri. And well, for the day, we will stop here and just maybe meditate a little while.